90% of your job as a community creator is teaching people how to interact with each other in ways that are meaningful and valuable. When we see bad engagement, or even worse, no engagement in our communities, it's easy to feel powerless for how to fix it. But this couldn't be farther from the truth. Before I go a step further, let me introduce myself. My name is Bree Lever. I'm community strategist and CEO at Ember, where we help coaches, consultants, and creators build thriving, paid, online communities. If that's you, you're in the right place. And at first, it might be uncomfortable and it might feel really unfamiliar to cultivate conversation and connection between your members, but it is a skill that you can develop and learn to pay attention to. And this video is going to cover one part of the environment that we create to optimize your community for great engagement. Because getting great engagement is a matter of designing an environment that's conducive to the habits you want to see. More on that in a second, but to help us understand this concept of engagement, I want to start with an analogy. You might not know what this is exactly. It's obviously bark, but what type of tree, where this tree is, how tall it is, you have no clue from this perspective. You're looking at a super ultra zoomed in perspective of this tree. And if I were to put you here, plop you here in front of this tree with this being your perspective and say, okay, it's time to get around this tree or time to climb up this tree. If this is all you're looking at, you have no idea how to go about doing that, which is why we have to at first adjust our perspective. And when we do that, we can see quite a different view. If I were to tell you from this perspective, your goal is to move around this tree or to climb up this tree, you can very easily, from this zoomed out perspective, start to get a sense for how to do that. Engagement is this oak tree. Engagement is a really huge topic. It's a big concept. We're talking about influencing people's behavior, not just in relationship to you, but in relationship to other people in your community. And so what I've found is asking the question, how do I get better engagement? Which every question that a community builder has either comes down to, how do I find new members, or how do I get better engagement? And that question of how do I get better engagement is just not a helpful question. It's us looking at the oak tree like this. So I'm going to offer some more creative, helpful questions for us to start approaching engagement from a more helpful perspective. Getting great engagement is a matter of designing an environment that is conducive to the habits you want to see. Now, one big assumption that we're making when we're talking about your community is that your community already has product market fit. It's already aligned. The value that you're providing there is already tested and confirmed that your members find that valuable. Once we have that basic assumption covered, now we need to move into habit formation principles. According to habit formation principles, a habit has three components: your prompt, your action, and your reward. This framework that I'm going to share focuses specifically on resourcing you with prompts. That is what we're going to focus on today. Prompts that lead to members taking the action you want to see. Now, before I move into my framework around prompts for great interaction, I want to pause and introduce another metaphor and analogy for community building. If you've ever gone rock climbing, you're familiar with the term belay to refer to a variety of techniques to hold tension on the climbing rope so your climber doesn't fall far before the rope stops them. On belay is the voice command issued by your non-climbing partner to indicate they are prepared to keep tension of the rope as you climb. I love this metaphor, and I love the phrase that's even used in the definition of this term, keep tension. And this embodies what it means to create community for people, what it means to create an environment where people can thrive. You are saying, I will keep the tension for you. I will embrace this tension. I will hold the boundaries of this space. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I will keep the tension for you so that you can climb higher, so that you can go to places you've never explored before. because only when someone is there keeping the tension are our climbers, our members, able to go higher. That is what is required. And I have to introduce this metaphor first because what I'm talking about in these prompts for interaction is adding rules, boundaries, tension. I like to call them weird rules, things about the environment in your community that shake people out of their normal online behavior. Because only when we create those new habits, those new methods for interaction that are more meaningful, more valuable, and special to your community uniquely, only when we do that will your members, number one, find this experience remarkable, and number two, tell all their friends about it. We can't forget that our role as community managers is to keep that tension. If this doesn't make sense, it will when we dive into the prompts, because sometimes it can feel uncomfortable. All right, let's move into prompts for interaction. So this is a matrix exploring 4 different types of prompts that you can use in your community to create remarkable interactions between your members. In any interaction, we have an initiator and a responder. So we have the person who is initiating the conversation and we have the person who is responding to the conversation. We can prompt people to initiate. We can also prompt people to respond in a certain way. And we can prompt them directly and indirectly. Most communities stop at this first box. Direct prompts for the initiator. Here is how to introduce yourself. Here are examples of questions you can ask. We really just focus on this box, but there is so much more that exists outside of this box. And this framework is going to blow your mind because I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. Okay, so I just want to give a couple examples to bring these types of prompts into the light. So for direct prompts to the initiator, these are an example of these and a good direct prompt to initiator. An example of a bad direct prompt to an initiator is, instead of asking questions on how you're feeling, just to ask them what they're doing over and over and over again. Tell me, what are your 3 priorities for this week? Tell me what's one thing you accomplished this week. Tell me what's one thing that you messed up this week. Okay, those questions are all focused on doing, which is fine. But if you want to create moments of meaningful connection, you want to shift your direct prompts to focus on feeling and being over doing. How are you feeling this week about your progress on the course? What's a win and how did it make you feel? What's a win and how did it relate back to a time where you didn't feel so great or where you really messed up? This type of prompt is where we lead the container with confidence. This is where we get really good at asking questions. Don't ask people to share what they need. Ask them to share about what they want. On a call, you can open up the floor. Did anyone show up for you generously in the community this week? Invite them to share. When a member hits your DMs, ask if they would be comfortable asking that question in the general discussion channel, because you know others probably have that same question. I have a dozen other prompts for this type in the resource that you will get when you sign up for my email list. If you're already on my email list, you have this library of prompts waiting for you in tandem with this video. If you're not on the email list, head over to the description where you can sign up and get the list of 52 prompts for these 4 types of interactions. Next, we have direct prompts for the responder. So this is where you are directly acknowledging the person who you think should respond to the initiator. So this could be tagging a member and saying, oh, hey, Susan has a lot of experience in this space. Susan, would you mind adding your thoughts on the situation? This type of prompt is where we access deep curiosity to help them go deeper with each other. This reminds me of what Kristen shared last month. Kristen, would you share what you tried and how it went? When someone's expressing a tough situation, ask, who is someone in this community who has been where you are right now? If they don't know, then that's their homework. Find someone in this community who is where you are right now. You could ask, hey, Luke, what's a question you could ask Deborah to help her look at this question and this issue from a new angle? It's uncomfortable. And this is why I introduced you to the concept of Belay first, because people might leave if you make them feel uncomfortable. They might. I 100% guarantee ultimately, they will leave when they do not find value in your community. And value will come when they experience growth and transformation. And growth and transformation only happen when people are uncomfortable. That doesn't mean that we're making people do things that they don't want to do. It doesn't mean that we're forcing people into anything, but it does mean that we are willing to keep the tension, to prompt members in new, unique ways so that they can explore new heights. It gets more awkward. Next, we have prompts for the initiator that are indirect. This is where we are focused on forming the environment using rules, rhythms, and rituals, which I talk more about in the Ember community, to create boundaries for your members. This can be as simple as an emoji that represents a particular feeling or a state of being. For example, this tornado means I'm in a comparison spiral. So it's a rule in our community that as soon as you're in a comparison spiral, you tell us. You use this emoji. When someone is in a comparison spiral, here's the 3 questions that we use to support them. That second piece was actually a prompt for the responder, if you caught that. That's an indirect prompt for the responder. We say, the rule is the second you're in a comparison spiral, you come here. The next rule is when you see someone in a comparison spiral, as the responder, here's the 3 questions that we use in your tool belt to help them get out of it. Another great example of indirect prompts for the initiator, you could host a greatest, I can't decide if I'm going to swear on these videos or not, your greatest mess ups open mic, where folks share about some of their biggest blunders. And finally, we have indirect prompts for the responder. This is your onboarding, okay? All of your onboarding rules live here. And one of the things I coach my clients on, particularly in connection-centric communities, having a substantial portion of your onboarding dedicated to teaching your members how to provide meaningful feedback for each other is essential. This could look like creating some boundaries around spaces where you don't allow feedback. We're just here to witness and to celebrate. This might mean having a really specific method and even a name for the process of giving feedback. Maybe part of your rules for giving feedback is before you share anything about your own experience, you have to ask 1 to 3 questions to the person who you are sharing feedback with. You can get really creative with this, but making it super clear, super obvious, and enforceable. So that's the thing about your community rules. They can't break it. It's not a rule. They have to be able to break it. If they can't break it, that's not a rule, and you need to tighten it up and create more of an edge there. Because again, if your rule isn't breakable, it's bland. It doesn't mean anything. It's not unique. It's not creating tension. It's just letting people do what they've always done, just like with new packaging. And that's not going to create the outcomes that your community is seeking. And ultimately, people are going to leave because they're not going to find it valuable. They're not going to experience growth, and they're not going to experience transformation. All right, this is part 1 of a 3-part series around habit formation for getting great engagement. If you'd like to see part 2, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and get on our email list for good measure, because you'll also get the 52. I have like a whole list with these 4 types of different prompts that you can consider for creating great interactions between your members.